Okay, welcome everybody to our off Flatbush revival of the Battle of Brooklyn, a farce of two acts. We're quite new to all this technology, so I hope it's working. If it's not, I'm really sorry, and we'll post it on YouTube afterwards. So my name's Dylan Yeats, and I'm here at the Old Stone House, where they just installed, as you can probably see behind me, a really incredible new exhibit called Brooklyn Utopias, which has 19 local artists that are imagining the Brooklyn of our dreams that we can try to build despite the persistence of racial and socioeconomic inequality in our borough, in our city, in our country, in our world. And I think it's actually, I'm feeling very honored that we have this backdrop for the play tonight, because at essence, the Battle of Brooklyn was a conflict of visions of what Brooklyn and America could be. And even though we're going to be poking fun of it, the Old Stone House is not only the appropriate venue because it celebrates Brooklyn's revolutionary history and the history of the battle specifically, but also that battle is still ongoing in many ways. So tonight is the 244th anniversary of the battle, which was the first battle for the War of Independence. I want to thank Kim Mayer and everyone at the Old Stone House for hosting us. I want to thank Freddy's Bar on 18th Street for hosting us last year. I want to thank my incredible cast. And I want to thank you, the audience, for coming to another Zoom meeting. The upside is you're all muted, so you can talk during the show, which is sort of a thrill. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce the play that you're about to see. But before then, I want to remind you about the battle that it is commemorating. After the Continental, and here's a copy of the play actually that I got reprinted, quarter millennium old. So, after the Continental Congress issued the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July, 1776, New Yorkers tore down the gilded statue of King George that was down at Battery Park, Bowling Green. As soon as that happened, maybe 3 or 4 days later, 400 ships arrived in the Narrows, which was actually at that time the largest number of British ships that had ever been assembled previous to that. At first, it wasn't clear if the invasion would take place in Brooklyn, Manhattan, or New Jersey. But on August 22nd, sorry, I'm silencing my phone. On August 22nd, 20,000 British troops disembarked at Gravesend, and most locals fled town. The Van Duyn family of New Utrecht was supposedly so scared when they saw the British land that they ran out of their house with their uneaten dinner still sitting on the table, and British soldiers found it afterwards. General Washington, George Washington, dispatched 2 old friends, William Alexander, Lord Stirling of New Jersey, and John Sullivan of New Hampshire, to stop the British. Stirling led roughly 3,000 troops to defend the Gowanus Road, which is roughly today's 3rd Avenue, and John Sullivan led a similar number to defend Flatbush Avenue, while thousands of others remained behind the lines defending under Washington himself. At 1 a.m. on August 27th, the Americans encountered British scouts in Simon Bergen's watermelon patch on 36th Street, and the shooting began. By dawn, Stirling and his men had dug in at the nearby Red Lion Inn, but in the face of 6,000 British regulars, they decided to pull back to Wynette Bennett's apple orchard at 23rd Street. And here's a picture of that. There, Stirling sent Pennsylvania riflemen under Colonel Samuel Attlee up to what we now call Battle Hill in Greenwood Cemetery, and led a group of Maryland and Delaware volunteers across the Gowanus Road to Bloke Hill, which was nestled between a swamp and the bay at around 20th Street. So positioned, the Americans halted the British advance. Attlee's riflemen picked off more than 50 enemy soldiers that morning, including Lieutenant Colonel James Grant, whose bullet-ridden hat was one soldier kept as a prize. But unbeknownst to Stirling, this was all just a distraction. Overnight, British General William Howe had quietly led 10,000 troops that the Americans didn't even know about along Kings Highway over to the outskirts of Bushwick and then back west on Jamaica Turnpike, which we now call Atlantic Ave. At 9 a.m., these troops surprised Sullivan at Flatbush Pass, which is now part of Prospect Park, and he surrendered immediately. Shortly after 10 a.m., Howe's men came upon Sterling from behind, while an additional 2,000 British troops landed at the foot of 36th Street. From the American fortifications in Brooklyn Heights, Washington watched in horror. He had not anticipated such a large British force, and he knew he couldn't risk sending Sterling any reinforcements. Despite being vastly outnumbered and outmaneuvered, Sterling did not go gently. He personally led nearly 400 Marylanders to charge Howe's men in order to buy the rest of the Americans time to swim across the Gowanus Creek to safety. Here's a picture of that. At Nicholas and Abigail Vecta's Old Stone House, where I'm sitting right now, 250 of these men sacrificed their lives so that 1,000 others could escape. British General Charles Cornwallis, who led the assault on the Old Stone House, recalled that Sterling, quote, fought like a wolf. An American major, Mordecai Gist, remembered Sterling's bravery, quote, inspiring almost invincible resolution among the Marylanders. But once the bulk of the Continental troops were across the Gowanus and Sterling could no longer defend his position, he surrendered, himself and his remaining men, to the Hessians, who were mercenaries, despite their reputation for cruelty, so as not to give any British officer the satisfaction of accepting his defeat. Howe didn't know how many American troops were left in downtown Brooklyn, so he decided to regroup a bit before attacking the lines, especially since heavy rain and a lack of wind, just like tonight, prevented the British Navy from offering support from the East River. The next night, a dense fog descended on Brooklyn, which Washington took to be a sign. Concerned that independence might be lost then and there, he ordered his men to light fires on all the ramparts so the British wouldn't notice the 6,500 remaining American troops quietly slipping across to Manhattan by rowboat. Lore has it that local loyalist Sarah Rapelye dispatched her slave to warn Howe about the Washington's retreat, but British General James Robertson only reached the docks in time to see the last of the American boats slip away. The American performance in Brooklyn was something of an embarrassment to many, but the Continental Army lived to fight another day and pushed the British out 6 years later. In occupied Brooklyn, the British insisted that American casualties be left where they fell to send a message, and their bodies were picked apart by birds. But sympathetic locals snuck out each night and secretly buried those they could. Hundreds of American captives on British ships in Wallabout Bay starved or froze to death, and their bodies were cast overboard. The bones that washed ashore for decades were lovingly gathered and placed in a tomb that became the Prison Ship Martyrs Monument in Fort Greene Park. It was in this context that the farce you're about to see was written and performed, supposedly at the King's Head Tavern Officers Club in Brooklyn Heights. Very little is known about this play, and its author remains anonymous. Theater historian Norman Philbrick, the only scholar to substantively engage the play so far, argues that it was likely written immediately after the battle because it does not reference the American retreat from Manhattan on September 15th, or the exchange of Sterling and Sullivan for captured British generals 3 weeks later. Nor does it reference the fact that American troops accidentally ransacked Sterling's Manhattan mansion while he was still in British hands, which certainly should have been fodder for the comedian's pen. Many Brooklyn writers over the years have assumed the play was written by a British officer, possibly even Gentleman Johnny Bourguignon, who later surrendered at Saratoga in October 1777. But this is almost certainly too good to be true. For while Bourguignon did write plays, he was in Quebec and then England in the fall of 1776. He never claimed authorship, and he was known for comic verse, which is entirely absent in this play. Instead, I think the author was a local Brooklyn loyalist, quite similar to the character that I will play, Joe King. Joe King is just your average Joe from Kings County, and he supports the king, and he's given to joking. I think the author, like the character, likely worked under Sterling, or at least knew him personally, which is one reason that the play so relentlessly mocks him. Washington had sent Sterling to Brooklyn in March 1776, a full 6 months before the battle, to construct the chain of forts and defenses downtown. To do so, Sterling required every male Brooklynite, including slaves, to provide 3 days of unpaid labor a week, which many understandably resented. Brooklynites were divided over whether independence was a good idea or not, but many just wanted to go about their lives unmolested. When the British finally did arrive, Sterling ordered all the cattle in Kings County seized and all the grain burned, lest the enemies get their hands on it. After the American retreat, Brooklynites were forced to house British officers who they begged to return their cattle. The British often used theatrical performances to communicate politics, and Joe King seems to be trying to explain to the occupying forces that whatever role he may have seemed to have in the revolution, he always knew it was a scam and remained loyal to the king. Perhaps the more he mocked the American cause, the better the British would treat him. When I stumbled upon this play, I couldn't believe it wasn't better known. But then I read it. It's super confusing and very long-winded. But it also contains numerous local details and presumes a deep understanding of what happened at the battle, which reinforced the idea for me that the Brooklynite wrote it. In fact, all these details check out with independent archival sources, including Sterling's penchant for drinking, which even his staunchest supporters considered excessive. Similarly, the play's treatment of Sullivan seems to reflect the fact that unlike Sterling, Brooklynites didn't really know him. Sullivan first set foot in Brooklyn just days before the battle to relieve Nathaniel Greene, who was ill. Further, after Sullivan's capture, and therefore around the time this play was written, he was working with the British to try to negotiate a peaceful resolution to the War of Independence, something Sterling and many other Americans deeply resented. We can see hints of this in this play, which only makes it an even more amazing historical artifact. In order to understand the play better, I decided to drill down to the essential plot, such as it is, and I increasingly realized that it was actually quite funny and worth sharing to the world. So I cut extraneous, archaic, and distracting scenes, characters, and lines, and I added a narrator for clarity. But otherwise, all the words you'll hear today are in the original. In fact, to maintain that level of historical accuracy which I crave, and since this play was initially performed at a tavern during wartime, we decided not to entirely memorize our lines. But we did decide to record the performance ahead of time because our internet connections kept failing, as many of ours have recently. So I'm going to be playing with screen share, the first take we could get without someone freezing. After the show, which is 20 minutes long, we're going to take any questions you have, which you can type in to your screen below. I think this play is historically important and hilarious. I'm not quite sure what it means to stage it at this awful moment of our nation's history, which is both tragedy and farce at once. But I do hope that, like Joe King, we can use wry creativity to make a very bad situation just a little bit better. So before we begin, I want to just briefly introduce our cast who are here. You can see people, Kurt is the manager of the Montauk Club, which he is live streaming at right now. And Tom and Paul will probably show themselves. Tom Hines, Paul Carlotto, show themselves. Thank you. And we'll celebrate you after the show, which I'm going to engage right now. So without further ado, please enjoy A Battle of Brooklyn, The Battle of Brooklyn, a farce of 2 acts.
Here we find Lord Sterling and his local attendant Joe King at an apartment in Brooklyn Heights. Washington had befriended Sterling during the French-Indian War and made him a general as soon as the revolution began.
Joe! Honest Joe! Oh, damn the fellow. Where can this king be?
Why, here, my lord. Devil damn me, sir. Pray, who do you damn so?
Oh, my dear Joe. Cares that distract and split this poor head of mine.
Split it? Yes, by heaven. Drank enough last night to split the head of an Indian.
Oh, insolence! In future, know me for your master, your lord.
I must hold a candle to this devil. My lord, I ask your pardon. I meant no harm. You know I am given to joking, and you formerly encouraged me in it.
Oh, forgive me, honest Joe. The public cares so hang upon me that they quite destroy my constitutional good humor. It's the British regulars are near to us, and every morning
and pickle those redcoat fellows.
We are to meet this day to determine in council what to do with them. I am for surrounding. Surround. That is the word with me. If there are 20 times the number, I say surround them all. With these grapes, Joe. And, oh, my canteens are empty. Go to the commissary and get my canteens filled. And by all means, my good Joe, be at home when I return.
Canteens filled. And then thy whole soul will be in thy canteens. That is, if he has enough credit with the commissary to fill them. And yet this most ignoble man is the chosen vessel to execute the Lord's work? Ill-fated country, when will this delusion end? Here we find Noah, General John Sullivan's attendant at Gowanus Heights, awaiting the British assault. Colonel Henry Remsen from Queens approaches.
Oh, heaven, he is wounded and out of his senses. Dear Colonel Remsen, can you speak?
Oh, here, God, what merciful scape I get this time. Gentlemen, have you seen my regiment?
No. Where did you leave it?
Oh, God.
Lord help us. How near is the enemy?
Oh, God, oh, God, oh, God. Come the blood out of me in any place?
Blood? No. Nor can I see anybody coming after you. Your hurt, I fancy, is fear, Colonel. Your wound must be sought for in your breeches. Compose yourself and tell us what has happened.
Well, I will tell you then. I was, yes, now, on the head of my regiment, close up behind Sean Van Dienen's field. I keep my eye on Arian Mortis slain. I see, yes, by the ground, something creeps. I say, my regiment, take care of yourself, boys. They begin for to run. My horse, he sees the danger too, and carry me off. God knows I get here, I believe the rest is all killed or taken prisoner.
Killed? No, nor any of them hurt, except for the 4 or 5 you rode over. Why, there was not a British regular within a mile when you took fright. Oh, you ungodly coward.
Here we find Elizabeth Phillips Gates, the wife of one of Washington's most trusted generals, and her chambermaid, Betty, in a room in Brooklyn Heights. Loyalist newspapers reported that Congressman Benjamin Harrison procured prostitutes for Washington.
After council, ma'am, General Gates will wait of you, till then he begs your patience, as the time is near that he is to meet the rest of the generals.
Oh, council! A pretty collection of councillors, indeed. But since it must be so, you shall give me the narrative of Harrison and your general, my sweet chambermaid. It shall beguile the time.
$50 and hard ones too, with the promise of 50 times as much, was irresistible. But oh, the nasty beast! I almost puke at the recollection. Harrison is such a slobbering, odious, unsavory smelling creature that I wonder how any woman in the world could sleep a night by his side.
And yet you see that $50 hard made you put up for a night with all the inconvenience of bad smells.
A night? Your ladyship wrongs me very much. Why, Harrison snored within an hour, and the first snore was a signal from my retreat. I am sure I should have been a corpse if I had been obliged to stay the night.
And there your affairs ended with Harrison, did they not, Betty?
Yes, my lady, for when Harrison found I could not abide him, he proposed to introduce General Washington to me. The general was a very pretty gentleman, and I consented to it on purpose to get rid of Harrison. The general is the sweetest, meekest, melancholy gentleman, and then he is such a warrior. Oh, ma'am, I shall always love the general.
And among his other qualifications, the most liberal?
Why, my lady, I will tell you honestly, His Excellency gave me a $30 bill. He assured me it would have been more, but that he was obliged to repay Harrison the 50 hard dollars that he had given me first. Now, ma'am, is not Harrison a dirty fellow in every shape that you can view him?
No great things, girl, to be sure, from your account of him. It is your meek, melancholy hero Washington from my own observation.
Lord, ma'am, did Washington not order the king's flame to be pulled down and the head cut off? For God's sakes, ma'am, What would you have of a hero?
My dear Betty, none but a little-minded barbarian would have suffered the Alps to be trampled underfoot as he did in the case of the king's statue. My dear husband Horatio, that you should sully your laurels with the abominable cause of Republican tyrants and smugglers in power. To be relegated for such miscreants! Look, it almost distracts me.
Spread away their tattered crew, advance with colors spread, sir. Their fights played Yankee Doodle, do Washington at their head, sir. Yankee Doodle did forget the sound of British drum, sir. How it made him bake and sweat in spite of Yankee rum, sir. Here we find Generals Washington, Sterling, and Sullivan in council atop Cobble Hill. The command center so named because it was elevated by cobblestones. American troops built a line of forts from Royalbout Bay to Kiwanis Creek in order to defend downtown Brooklyn.
Gentlemen, spies from Flatbush inform me that the regulars are making a disposition to cross the hills near that place. Lord Sterling, with his usual intrepidity and precision, has reconnoitered their numbers, which he finds to be about 7,000. General Sullivan has appointed the hill with exquisite judgment, where the brigades under him and Lord Sterling are to act as occasion may require. 12,000 men are allotted for the service of sending them back to their ships. I, with about 8,000, will stay within these lines unless our present deliberations alter this plan of operation. My lord, the council expects your opinion.
I rise to give it to the most respectable and most puissant council of general officers that this, or any other age, has ever produced. I am for surrounding them, and when we have got them hemmed in, I'm then for sending them to our noble commander-in-chief, who, knows what to do with them.
Flimsy, drunken fool. His lordship's ideas are exceedingly surrounding. I hope the practice may be as easy as the theory, and that their numbers may not exceed 7,000. But if the council holds the opinion of General Washington and myself, our deliberations are at an end, and we cannot be too soon at our different posts.
Well then, I am for my post. Gentlemen, farewell.
Now, a little sober reasoning, General Sullivan. My apprehensions from the king's troops, believe me, are trifling compared with the risk we run from the people of America at large. The tyranny that our accursed usurpations has made necessary, I fear, will soon make them see through the disguise. Their rage, no doubt, will be heightened by the slaughter that will probably ensue, and we, as members of Congress, will fall the first victims in it. Oh, Sullivan, my heart never consented to this ruin of my native country.
My dear General, the moments for reflection are elapsed and irrecoverable. Our safety is first in conquest. If that is denied to our endeavors, I am sure we can obtain better terms from our much injured sovereigns than from our more injured country.
Our soldiers are a standing miracle to me. They resign their thinking in us in a case where their all is at stake, and do not yet discover that we make them the engines of our power at the expense of all that is dear to them and sacred to them as men. Our hope, my dear Sullivan, is in you. Every command of ground is ours with a perfect knowledge of all the woods. These advantages double the strength of our men. And if we cannot defend these, I know of no place we can.
All things that depend on me will, I hope, meet with your approbation. I shall aim to infuse such sentiments into the troops that our next meeting may be ushered in with greetings of congratulation. Till then, my dear General, farewell.
Greetings of congratulations. Could I congratulate myself on finding my lost peace of mind? On the restoration of my honor? Oh, cursed ambition. What have I sacrificed to thee? Oh, hey, oh, bless me, so late. And my engagements to a lady not complied with.
Here we find General Sterling and his attendant Joe King in position at Gowanus Heights at 3 o'clock in the morning. Hello? General Sterling, hello?
Whoa, for God's sake, what's the matter?
Your Lordship, there's been a great deal of shooting near the Red Lion Inn.
Oh, shooting? Which way did it come from?
Bergen awakened me, said there was a shooting in his field.
Oh, God bless me, a shooting? In his field? Wait, was it near his house?
Very near. So I stole out, for I knew the road, dark as it was. Everything was still, as if nothing had happened, but I could hear the groans of dying men at a little distance. Not seen anything else since.
Oh, so what are their numbers?
Well, there are not 50 of them, or there should have been some noise.
Oh, damn it! Tis nothing but a scouting party. Come, we'll take a whistle for my canteens. It is a devilishly raw morning, and I must have something to keep the cold out.
Here we find General Sterling Sullivan on a hill above Gowanus Creek at around noon. All morning, the British slowly pushed Sterling north along the water and Sullivan east from his position at Flatbush Pass, and they have just joined forces.
Well, my lord, will you make a disposition for your favorite scheme of surrounding?
For God's sake, dear General, don't mention it. I did not expect them to... this way.
Let 4 brigades immediately take post in the bottom and extend as far as the stone house upon the left. If they should force those brigades to the hill, we can easily maintain this post against the united force of Britain without loss, and make the retreat to our lines, when we please, unmolested.
No, the regulars are very nearly up to them. You'll see. They'll push directly, General.
I see they do push, but it is with their bayonets, and our men are scampering towards us.
Dear General, what shall we do now?
There is nothing to obstruct us in our rear, my lord. We will retreat in good time.
All lost. Oh, Lord, undone, ruined, destroyed.
Amazement! What ails the man?
Oh, in the rear, there, in our rear, the regulars. There's no retreat. Oh, there's no retreat. Oh, General Sullivan, what do you think of it now?
I think that we heaven-born generals are apt to lead our troops to the devil.
But my dear General Sullivan, what shall we do?
Just what you please. Every man is now his own general. So, gentlemen, farewell.
Oh, Lord, incline their hearts to mercy. I hope that we are not of enough consequence to be hanged.
Here we find Noah, soon to be joined by King, in a room at Brooklyn Heights after the American retreat.
Notwithstanding your dirty condition, Mr. Noah, I congratulate you on your safe arrival into your old quarters. Neither holed by musket balls nor swelled up with salt water and creek mud. Thanks to my activity, I am not crab's meat with the rest. Welcome, Joe. Dripping from the creek, I see. But I am glad to see you alive.
Confirm it that I really am alive, for I feel some doubts about it.
Don't you know me then?
Well as I know myself, Noah, but are we both not in the other world?
Why, man, look about you, and you will find this to be the very room that we have inhabited for some time past. Behold, Joe, this pocket bottle. one half of its contents I prescribe to your conviction and restoration.
Well, now I return your congratulations, and I am heartily glad to see you on this side of the grave. But Noah, what has become of our generals?
Killed or taken prisoners, but I suppose the latter. My poor General Sullivan, I quite lament him.
Mine is under the same predicament, but I have not a pity for Sterling, nor should I love you very much if I thought you serious in your lamentation. For God's sakes, Noah, how came a man of your understanding in the capacity of Sullivan's servant?
Without a doubt, I might have started with a regiment, and probably have been myself a general by this time, but I saw through their topsy-turvy schemes. Though I was obliged to float with the tide, I knew the post of honor would be the most private station. But Sullivan will be a loss to his family.
So not will Sterling. He will be a loss to nobody but those who find him. Had Sullivan any property?
Most excellent property, for he made a property of weakness and ignorance, and consequently had an extensive fund. But yours was a titled general, and I suppose very full of property, as he often declared he was full of principle.
His principle, Noah, has for years past to withhold other people's property from them. It is a maxim with this Congress of Philadelphia that by the marvelous the vulgar are to be made robbed of their reason. But heaven has rejected the sacrifice, so that the people may open their eyes and no longer be the dupes of their tyranny, deception, and bloodshed.
They are indeed such monopolizers of liberty. Oh, almighty disposer of human events, open thy eyes of my deluded fellow subjects in this once happy country. And encourage them to free exercise of that reason, which is the portion of every individual, that each may judge for himself. Then peace and order will smile triumphant over the rugged face of war and horror. Same hand that sows shall reap the field, and our vines and vineyards be our own.
The end.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. It is raining hard down here, but spirits are high. I would like my cast, if they can, to turn on their videos, or if they don't mind, so I can celebrate you. We have Kurt Schlachter as Noah. You are amazing. Thank you so much. We have Thomas Hines, my cousin. George Washington, greatest ever. Thank you so much. We have, and Remsen. We have Kate Hill playing both Betty and General John Sullivan, also sort of my cousin. And then we have Paul Carlotto, Lady Gates, and Lord Sterling, William Alexander. Thank you so much. You guys were totally incredible. And thanks for everything. So, if anyone has any questions, does not seem like you do, but if you do, then you can text and we can figure that out. Seeing a lot of applause, which I'm going to verbally communicate. Applause, applause, applause. People were very happy about it. I was very concerned about the technology. We had a bit of a Facebook meltdown, which I believe was resolved, according to my sources. And when the storm came, I got a series of internet unstable messages, which kind of freaked me out. But okay, so we have some raised hands. Gwen, hi. Do you have a question, Gwen?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I was just wanting to send my congratulations from Fredericton, from Canada.
Yeah, Gwen,
on.
will you talk a little bit about the Loyalist collection?
Oh, well,
Or your work? Gwen, I reached out many of the Brooklynites and New Yorkers who were Loyalists, and I believe my suspect for who wrote this play, which I'm not sure about yet,
right.
moved up to the maritime provinces of Canada. And last week or earlier this week, I reached out to some of the scholars that do work up there, and Gwen is one of them who generously attended, which I'm really thrilled about. And and we realized that we have this kind of regional connection that we had never thought about before. I had never thought about before, particularly until we started talking. And so if you want to tell us a little bit about what happened, that'd be great. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming.
Well, I'm not sure what to say, but just that there were a lot of Loyalists who came, came out of New York and came into this area in fact, created the province of New Brunswick. So Fredericton, where I am right now, University of New Brunswick, was one of the cities founded by the Loyalists who came up through New York and so on. But anyway, I'm not sure quite what to say to you, but we've been writing back and forth, actually. Yeah.
But I'm really glad you came, and thank you so much for everything.
Oh no, thank you. It was great fun, and I look forward to our continuing exchanging, stories and so on, and research. So that's great.
Yeah, thanks, Gwen.
Okay.
Good to talk
Bye.
to you further. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Andrew, for reaching out. I had given a tour with some of this information a couple years ago. We have an attendee. Oh, does Lila have a question? Unmute yourself, Kurt.
Please answer Andrew. But yes, Lila has a question.
What's your question, Lila?
No, Andrew, that was not Andrew, my buddy.
What's that?
Did soldiers really eat their horses?
Probably. I don't know for sure, but yeah, I could see it. Thank you. So Miles Greer has a question, which is, do we have any sense of who would have performed the play and who would have attended? And the answer is that Brooklyn lore has it that it was performed at this King's Head Tavern, which was attached to the Brooklyn Ferry, and served as an officer club. And they did host a number of plays. And I increasingly believe that it was performed. There were many plays written in this period that were not actually performed. But actually the suspect that I have as the potential author was the man who got the contract to run that tavern. And I think that he may have hosted an event before that contract was given, celebrating the King's birthday, which is October 25th. This play was printed in late November. So I think there's a good chance that a performance that he gave, maybe for Howe and other British generals and other important people, could have influenced that. And a lot of what I cut out from the play actually is very heavy kind of Anglican language, which was a unsuccessful but intense strategy that Howe's attendant Searle, who was kind of the head of propaganda person in New York that they sent to set up kind of how to win over the American people, he was like, Anglicanism will do it. And so I think that might be a suggestion to me that maybe Searle was in attendance. Searle took over all the newspapers in New York briefly and then found people that he trusted to run them. So I think there's a chance that he probably wouldn't have no one got a contract after the British occupation without some sort of way of getting the British to trust them, because they really didn't understand kind of what all the fuss was about, why the Americans were so upset. So anyways, I increasingly think that it was performed, and probably at this tavern or somehow connected to the tavern, which I imagine that maybe, a lot of times folklore, there's a truth there that might be kind of jumbled around. And so I think the idea that it was performed at the tavern suggests to me that there was some connection with the tavern, whether or not it was actually performed there or maybe it was. So anyways, that's kind of where I'm moving with that. I have a question. Where did Sterling get his telescope from? And where can you get one? Well, there was a lot of debate among the cast as to whether or not a toilet paper roll would read as a telescope. We had to go full paper towel. And in this instance, paper towel won out. So,
yeah. And Kate, I think if you wanted one of your own, I think right near your stove and one of those little rolly things, I think is that where you keep your paper towels? I think so. You might look at one of those.
Good. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming.
Thank you, Dylan.
And putting up with the weird technology. And I'm really glad that it seems to have largely worked. We plan on doing this every year, so stay tuned. And thank you again to the Old Stone House and everybody else who helped.
It's beautiful.
Dylan, this is me presenting you a bouquet as the director, okay? Take it back.
Thank you.
Oh, very sweet, very sweet.
Okay. All right. Happy Battle of Brooklyn Day, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks.